Hey everybody, welcome back to ChortleCast. I'm Jake, and with me, as always, Steven, the Stream King, the King of Thieves. Hey Steven, how are you doing?
Can one be the king of two things? That is the question we're posing on the ChortleCast today.
You know, Dani is first of her name, Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains. I redacted the spoilers there for everybody.
One can have multiple titles, but can one be the king of multiple things?
I mean, I don't know, Steven. I'm not an expert.
Okay.
But you know what I am an expert on? I'm an expert at ChortleCast, where we talk about TV shows, video games, movies, anime, whatever the heck we want to talk about. And today, we have a great show for you. I probably sound a little bit echoey. And obviously, you have a bunch of audio waves moving in front of your face, your beautiful, beautiful faces. So we don't have camera today, Steven. Would you like to explain to the good people why we don't have face cam and whose fault that is?
Actually, we have transcended beyond the need for physical form. We are these audio waves now. This is us.
Whoa. So screw FaceTime. We're with you right now as audio waves.
Screw FaceTime. It's wave time now.
Wave time. I love it.
Also, it's totally Jake's fault.
It's totally Jake's fault. So I moved this past weekend, and so my recording setup is still in limbo. Part of that is because I need some things to get it working properly. And once I started setting up for the podcast, I hit like 4 or 5 walls of things I was going to have to get. So it's just like, you know what, Steven, we're just going to do audio so we can get it going and we'll have a podcast. So that's why we're like this. But we got a great show for you regardless. We're going to talk about Robert Pattinson potentially playing Batman. We're going to talk about Sony and Microsoft working together on something. And then we're going to hear about the raid that happened Saturday night from Steven in Division 2, and then we're also going to hear about John Wick.
Cool.
It's going to be a good show. So let's jump right into the news. Let's just start with the Robert Pattinson thing. So it's not confirmed yet. He is not officially
the internet
Batman.
sure is treating it like it's confirmed.
I mean, it might as well be, because he's the only one people are talking about. But the other guy who's technically still in the race is Nicholas Hoult, who has been playing the Beast in the X-Men movies.
And you know, as much as I hate to say it, I prefer Nicholas Hoult as an actor. I think he's great. Mm-hmm. I think Robert Pattinson would make a better Batman pretty easily, actually.
So I have really weird mixed feelings about this, and I don't think my feelings regard so much about Patterson being Batman so much as my feelings revolve around what are you guys gonna do with the character Batman that's gonna make me want to watch this movie. But I'm surprised to hear you say you think Patterson would be better. So talk about that, Steven. Why do you think that?
Nicholas Hoult, I like him a lot, but if you look at the roles he plays, he is much more fit for the role of the timid intellectual. He played Beast really well. He played J.R.R. Tolkien pretty well, I think. And he just doesn't have that stoic, commanding presence that Bruce Wayne and Batman demand. I don't think Patterson has it either, but I think Patterson at least could have the look for a young Bruce Wayne. And honestly, I have mixed feelings about it too, but I think that if they pick the right Batman story to tell, he could be okay.
Yeah, I completely agree, and like I said, that's kind of where I'm at. I want to know, what are we doing with this Batman? Because we've got Batman Begins. You know, that's Steven and I, we've talked about this before, but we've got Batman's origin at least once or twice. I kind of feel like it's oversaturated at this point, but Stephen, you made the argument earlier that it's not really that oversaturated, but I would like to see something different from a Batman movie. And the thing that comes to mind, and the things that a lot of people on Twitter, or at least that I've seen, have been kind of asking and calling for, is a Batman Beyond movie, which I don't think is the trajectory they're going for with this, but I think something like that could be really cool.
Oh man, if that's what they were doing, whew, I would be all for that. Well, I loved Batman Beyond. Oh man, his name just left me. Terry McGinnis?
No, the Batman animated series.
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy. He is my Batman, right? Like that's just
same.
To me, 100%. He is just one of the better Batman we've ever had, if not the best. I've always thought it would be so cool if he could play old Bruce Wayne in a live-action Batman Beyond movie. And this would be the perfect opportunity. But I've also seen some folks touting
Michael Keaton. Yep.
And that would make sense. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see everything come full circle that way, and he could do it. Mm-hmm. But, like, to me, it's such wish fulfillment to just have him play a live-action Bruce Wayne at least once, because his voice is so iconic. Because when I think of Batman, the first image, like the first mental picture I get, is him like standing and talking, because he has that just commanding presence that I talked about earlier, and you can't do better than Kevin Conroy. That's one of the reasons I disliked Christian Bale's Batman so much, is because it couldn't do that. It couldn't do that at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm looking at pictures of Kevin Conroy now. Like, you get him in enough makeup, gray his hair out, he could totally look like old man Bruce.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's he I think he could do it. I don't know if he's interested in anything like that, but that would be awesome. But again, I don't think that's what they're planning to do. If I remember correctly, this Batman story that Matt Reeves, who I believe is the director, I'm not sure if he's the writer.
Matt Reeves.
They're working on like more of an early, like a year one Batman take.
Which, to be fair, I think Robert Pattinson would do a year one Batman pretty well.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. The thing, so let's back it up. So do you've kind of mentioned your thoughts on Patterson. Do you think he could do a decent job?
I don't know his acting well enough to know how well he would do, but I do think that to say that there's no way he could do a good job is not being fair.
And that's kind of where I sit too. I certainly don't think, I don't look at this and say, oh my God, he would be the worst. He could not do this. I don't think at all. In fact, the first image that popped in my mind is, Stephen, have you seen the Lego Movie 2?
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with this? There's a scene of like Batman gets taken to the little sister's room or whatever, and he gets turned into like a white glittering Batman,
the glitter
and like
suit.
has to perform a number.
Yep.
That is the image that popped in my mind when someone said Robert Pattinson is going to play Batman. Which I'm sure for a lot of people, maybe not that specific scene, but like, how is this sparkling vampire going to pull this off?
Honestly, like, to me, the thing that that I worry about the most is his voice. I don't know if he's got the Bruce Wayne voice. Because like, I haven't heard his, again, I don't know his acting well at all. I haven't heard his American accent. He's not American, right? I assume he's British.
I feel like he is British. I could probably figure that out.
I should look up interviews with him and just kind of like listen to him talk, because that's a lot of it, in my opinion. Because Batman is the hero that his main weapon is fear. He needs to be intimidating, and I don't know if I could see him as intimidating. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm excited to see what he does, but I'm also like hesitant. Like, I don't know, but we'll see.
I certainly don't think, oh my gosh, oh man, he's going to be awesome. But at the same time, I think depending on what story they try to tell, this could be a really, really good take on Batman. So anyway, I did want to mention before we go though, to me, I'm thinking Edward Cullen from the Twilight films, but he's done a ton. That was just kind of what pushed him to stardom, but he's done a ton of
stuff. And that's why I think that the internet's not being fair, because the guy's done more than Twilight.
Yeah, that's what I was just
he
about
does
to get
have
to.
that talent.
It's a lot of indie stuff, which is probably a lot of people haven't seen, but like the Lost City of Z, High Life, The Map to the Stars, Good Time. He's got a bunch of different movies, and there's actually a list going around on the internet right now of, it's basically like Batman fans should watch these Patterson movies to get excited about him being Batman. So I think, obviously if he's even being considered for the role, at some point someone saw him doing what he's doing and said, hey, he might be good, or, I don't know.
And just to clarify, we have been pronouncing his name wrong. It's Pattinson, not Patterson.
I will never stop. Okay. It's Pattinson, like I just filed a patent.
Like patent pending. Pattinson.
Patrickson is patent pending. Okay, here we go.
What?
All right. Well, the other bit of news that I want to talk about, Steven, when I heard about it, blew my mind. Sony and Microsoft are partnering together to improve cloud gaming for streaming platforms. So basically, the Xbox cloud service that we've been hearing about, this is how I understand this, that's going to be, streaming games to your Xbox, just like the Google Stadia, that concept, but just through Microsoft. We've all been waiting to hear what Sony's going to say about it. And what they're saying is Sony and Microsoft are going to join forces and create their own cloud that you can stream your games to. What do you think of that, Steve?
Something's fishy about that.
I never in a million years would have thought something like this would happen, because number one, Sony just doesn't play nice with others. They're very much, they know they're on top right now, and they don't care to do anything risky. But even beyond that, this, to me, the Microsoft Cloud was going to be kind of almost like a selling point, or like like, hey, look at us, we're Microsoft, and you can stream our games. You don't even have to download them. Or like, look at us, we've got this cool thing. But now it sounds like that Sony's just gonna piggyback off what they're doing. Obviously they're gonna help them create the infrastructure and do some other stuff, but anyway, I don't know. I'm trying to
really
see if
surprised.
there's any good quotes to make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing, but this is how I've understood it.
The only reason that I can think of that they would have done this is because they're scared.
I totally think that's what it is.
But that is interesting, because I personally, and I don't think many people outside of, I guess, the professional industry, saw Stadia as that big of a threat.
Well, it's interesting because when Stadia was announced, and we never really got to have a podcast about Stadia, so I don't want to dive into my very personal feelings on Stadia. I mostly don't like it. Well, I mostly just don't like the concept that this is anyway. But Microsoft CEO, or not CEO, but Sean Layden, the guy that comes out on E3, he came out after that and was like, they don't have content. He was like, we've got the content, So he didn't seem worried at all, which that might have just been PR huff and puff to make people think they were fine when really they were like, oh my gosh, how did they do this?
Well, I don't know. That sounds like, to say we've got the content, they don't have the content, that sounds like he is intimidated because
Well,
if it was something where it was like speaking for me personally, if I didn't feel threatened by something, I'd be like, good for them. But if I felt like I needed to counterattack and justify my existence, I would say, here's why not them, here's why us.
Well, that's the interesting thing, again, coming back to Sony, because until this, we have not heard anything about Sony planning to do anything like this, which I've been looking at and been pointing to as it's going to be real funny when people decide this streaming thing just doesn't work, or at least it's not going to be working well for a few years. Right. Sony's still going to be doing the same thing. I mean, they've already confirmed that you're going to have hard disks in the PS5.
Yep.
So I've been thinking, okay, cool. Sony is going to say, this way of doing games has worked, and it's worked well. And downloading your games, though it might take a while for them to get to your system, it's there, and we can't. If we delete the game off our server, you still have it. I think people are gonna maybe not run to Sony, but I think Sony's not going to be hurt because they weren't involved in this. I don't know, but I'm still shocked to think that they're going to join forces. And the first question you had to me when I told you about this story, Stephen, was, do you think this means we'll have more cross-platform stuff? And I don't see how it couldn't lead to at least some more, because especially if they're both using the same cloud service.
Did I ask that?
You didn't. We just talked about that. We talked about that over text when I first shared the story to y'all. Maybe it was Brody. Somebody was like,
it was Miles. That's who it was. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To me, that just seems weird because you would think that, and maybe they are really playing the long game, and really the industry as a whole just thinks, like it or not, streaming games is where we're headed.
I don't like it.
I don't either. And Sony understands this and is basically 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door, saying discs for the next generation will be a thing, but as they move forward, they're probably going to introduce and push towards game streaming. And maybe Sony sees this as their opportunity to get in on the ground floor of the next generation, so that if it does take off, they're safe. And that they've been there in the conversation the whole time. I don't know, like that it's honestly troubling to me because I don't want streaming content to be the future. And if everyone is saying, "Hey, this is the future," then it is.
Right. Well, at the very least, I feel like we have to be a lot more incremental than we're being. And I won't get too deep into Stadia and why I think it's a problem, but just to hit a bunch of bullet points. Number one, people in rural areas who have slower service, and Google even talked about this when they were talking about it, saying that, it might suffer in some places that don't have as many, but, it should still work. And they talked about how, that's the speed that you had to have to run a 1080 game. And stuff, and even that was not crazy high. It wasn't crazy high, but it wasn't crazy low either. So rural areas, and then also I think about historically saving games, making playability better, or not playability. What am I trying to say? Backwards compatibility, going back to older games. There's some games that are not able to play again. And I'll be the first to tell you, old game is old. Once I beat a game and I put it away, I might hold on. Like I've been selling my PlayStation 3 this week during my move, which I've held on to almost to the PS5 life, Right. But I never turned it on again. The whole PS4 life cycle, I never used it. I just had it. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't go back, but I do am concerned about that. But what I'm even more concerned about is I'm already an all digital person on PlayStation. I'm downloading everything I'm playing, and I get so annoyed when I go back to something and realize, I bought a disc for this. Like, I get so annoyed by it. But with something like Stadia, where all of the games are in their cloud and you're just streaming it like you do Netflix,
right?
When Google decides, Witcher 3, it's about 4 years old, no one's playing this anymore, let's take it off. Well, suddenly I can't play Witcher 3 anymore.
It removes all ownership from the consumer.
Exactly. And at least, like, with how things work now with Sony, I can download The Witcher 3, and then, a couple of years from now, they may take it off their store, and it may be somewhere you could get physically, but theoretically, I should still be able to play my downloaded version. There will never be any more updates or anything like that.
Right.
So I don't know. I at least what I'm getting to is if this is the future, let us at least still continue to download things. Because in rural places like where we are, and we're not even that rural, we can, if I can at least download it, then I can have a lot more of a better experience. And then if I do want to try to stream to my phone or to my laptop when I'm on the road, then that's going to be a really cool, fun thing that I can do. But right. I don't want my entire gaming experience to exist that way. We got off on a real tangent there, but I'm excited to see what Microsoft and Sony are going to cook up together.
Yep.
Steven, let's catch up.
Okay.
I don't have anything to catch up on. I've been moving, and in fact, before we recorded this, I was like, what can I talk about for catch up? What have I watched? No. I was like Detective Pikachu. Oh wait, no, that was last week. So yeah, I've done nothing. I've spent every night moving loads to my new home, and I still have a couple loads to take. But hopefully sometime this week I'll be able to jump back into Days Gone. But I'm not holding my breath. So, Steven, what have you been playing and doing?
Well, on Friday, actually, I'll start on Tuesday. A lot of movies in my summer. On Tuesday, I went to see Tolkien, the movie about the author of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And J.R.R. Tolkien is a personal hero of mine. Yeah, like they asked that question: if you could meet anyone in history, who would it be? And Tolkien is very high on my list, maybe even number one. So they did a movie about him, and it was starring Nicholas Hoult. I don't know how we pronounce it.
Hoult, I think.
Okay. And it was pretty good. It was about his childhood and from his childhood through his time in World War I. And it was a lot about not necessarily what inspired the books. There's a lot of imagery. Stuff pointing to that. Mm-hmm. There's some imagery and there's some things that point to that, but it was more so about what inspired him as a person. Like you learn about his love for language and how he created languages just basically for fun. Like he talked to a language professor at I forget, maybe in Oxford, the school that he was going to, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's." He got drunk one night and just ranted in the courtyard of the school, and the professor was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." And he's like, "Yeah, I was very drunk. That was a language I wrote for the fairies that I was talking in." And so you just, and it seemed like I don't know much about his childhood. Most of what I know about Tolkien, because I studied him for a while, is his adult life. So I don't know how much of it was fake and how much of it was real, like as far as like authenticity goes. But there were some smaller things that they included that make me think that they actually did do their research and did stay pretty faithful. But again, I'm not the rating authority on that. Then on Friday, I went to see a movie called John Wick 3 Parabellum.
And I just want to say before you get any further, I keep wanting to call the next season of Destiny Parabellum. It's actually Opius or something like that. Opioid something.
Gosh, what was it called?
I forget. It's something with an O.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna bother me.
Anyway, I kept trying to tell people about it, and I'd be like, Parabellum? And they're like, that's John Wick.
So Parabellum means prepare for war in Latin. So, Jake, you haven't seen a John Wick movie.
I haven't seen a single freaking John Wick movie, Steven.
You should watch
time,
them.
In fact, when you come up to visit me next in my new home, let's set up and we'll just have a marathon of all of them.
Okay. Also, you haven't seen any Edgar Wright movies like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver. We have a list, Jake.
Look, Steven, let's not talk about all the things that we have to watch. Let's just focus on John Wick 3, Parabellum.
So
okay?
John Wick, I'm not going to talk about the series because, I mean, anyone who hears the word John Wick and knows anything about it understands. So this third one takes place literally minutes after the second one ends. So it's an action series, and the first two were more about guns. He's a hitman who is just an expert with all forms of firearms. Mm-hmm. This movie actually had a lot more hand-to-hand combat than I expected, which, keep it fresh, I guess. So that was interesting. But I'm just going to... Minor spoilers, and by minor spoilers, I mean no plot details, just some of the kills that happen in the first 10 minutes of John Wick Parabellum. So the first action scene that happens, John is in a library, and he's being hunted. And this 7.5 foot tall dude walks up to him, and they get in a hand-to-hand fight in cramped quarters. John gets stabbed in the left shoulder. Or was it? No, it was the right shoulder. In his right shoulder. Not important, but whatever. So John's only weapon is a big book that he grabs off the shelf. And he starts using it to just bash this dude's head. And then eventually he gets the upper hand. Just keeps wailing on him. Then takes the back end of the book, shoves it in the dude's mouth, then twists it to snap his jaw. And then the dude's staggered, so John puts the book on the desk, hits him down to where his neck lands on the book, and then elbows his head to break his neck on the book.
Gee
and it was all very graphic.
Ouch.
And that was literally in the first 5 minutes, and everyone in the theater was cringing and oh my god. I love these movies because they have moments like that where the action is just so creative and so brutal that the theater is disgusted and loving it at the same time.
I've never been so disgusted, inspired, and in awe all at the same time.
So then John is running away, and a group of 8 Asians wearing black follow him, which, basic evil henchmen in an action movie. They follow him into an antique weapons room, and there are all kinds of knives and hatchets and stuff in glass cabinets. So they get in a fight with those, and they just start throwing knives everywhere. And it was kind of cool seeing how they portrayed knife throwing as kind of realistic, to where probably 60% of the knives thrown were hitting people with the hilt. So you just hear thum, thum, thum. They just kept bouncing off of people. But
cool
people
just did that. That's a really good detail.
Yeah, it's when it comes to the action, it has he has a bulletproof kind of suit. So that's kind of unrealistic, but everything else, he's an action hero that has to reload. He behaves, he moves like a human. It's actually realistic action for the most part. So when they're throwing these knives and everything, people have 6 to 8 knives stuck in them before they finally go down. And there's this one point where he's up close on this guy. It's down to 2 other guys, and one of them is like on the ground and trying to get away. The guy that's still up, John's got a knife, and he's like pushing it towards the guy's face. And you know how in movies they show like when a knife is about to stab somebody in the eye, and it's like, oh, are they going to do it? And they don't do it. In this movie, he slowly gets the upper hand on the guy and slowly presses the knife into his eye and just cuts it. Like, it was disgusting. But then he picks up a hatchet as the other guy's trying to crawl away and throws it and just impales him in the head. This is all within the first 10 minutes.
Dang.
Like, this movie is... It's very, very action-packed. The plot gets pretty bloated, unfortunately. It's the weakest of the 3, in my opinion. But the fight choreography is pretty good because, like I said, it is more hand-to-hand focused, so you get that brutality. 2 people die from getting kicked in the head by a horse. And that was...
a sad way to go.
That was the running joke, like, in the first 15 minutes of the movie is, what else can John use to kill somebody? And he was fighting 2 guys in a stable, and one of them stands up behind a horse, and John smacks the horse in the butt, and the dude gets kicked so hard in the head that his neck completely breaks, and his head just falls backward.
Gee whiz.
I'm telling you, this movie, like, it's one of those things where your jaw is on the floor the whole time because of, like, wow, they actually went there with the brutality, but it's great. Like, you have to appreciate how inventive the action that they do is. And that's kind of how these movies are. Like, very brutal.
Of all I know about it, I kind of thought that was the whole point, was just like, oh, look, what can John kill someone with next? Like, I view it as like a Hitman movie more than anything.
It's a Hitman movie that has, like, an emotional center. Like, it's all about John and basically his wife died of a disease, and that's how the movie starts, and he's trying to get out of the life, but he keeps getting thrust back in. And so it's a man trying to forget his sins, but the world won't let him. So it's actually a pretty cool, deep story, and it's really cool seeing Keanu Reeves be that guy because he's such a likable, down-to-earth kind of guy.
I was just about to say, of all the things I know about this movie, I know I really like Keanu Reeves just as like a dude because he's really, really cool.
It's so cool seeing him on top again because he actually did most of his stunts in at least the first 2 movies, I think. He went through the firearms training. He is a beast with a gun. Like, it's really cool seeing that because it definitely feels like his comeback story. Just to give you an idea of his character, there's this scene in the second movie, and I won't dwell on this too long. There's a scene in the second movie where this guy who wrongs him, like, is meeting with him in public, and the story that everyone tells of John Wick is that he is so lethal, brutal, effective, whatever, that he killed a group of people with a pencil. And that's like his legend. And this guy in the second movie that's meeting with him, he's like, I bet you want to kill me right now, don't you? How are you going to do it? Maybe with that woman's pen over there that's in her pocket, or maybe that stool over there. And John just leans in and goes, my hands. And it's so good. Like, they're really good movies if you just are looking for an action movie that has a pretty good story and likable characters. So John Wick 3 was good. The plot is bloated, and it feels like the series is kind of dragging out, but I enjoyed it. The action, as always, was very enjoyable, and I now know how to brutally kill people with a book.
So would you say that I assume this is not a good place to jump in for people? People should definitely go see the other ones first.
John Wick as a whole, they're called chapters. Like John Wick Chapter 2, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, because they all take place minutes. I think 2 takes place like maybe a day after 1, and then 3 takes place minutes after 2. So they tell a point-to-point cohesive story. It is all one story. But
cool.
I definitely recommend them. The first one's my favorite. Second one is very good. Third one gets overly complicated, but is still good.
Will there be a John Wick 4, you think?
Almost certainly. If this movie does well, yes, because it does leave off
sure it will.
on a cliffhanger. Yeah. And they're actually doing one of the things about John Wick is there is a hitman society that exists under what's called the High Table, which is basically like a council that oversees the world, pretty much. And the hitmen, it's really cool seeing how they work because like everything, a service is rewarded by a single coin. So the underground society, whenever they need something, like here, take me to the leader of this faction, they offer a gold coin. Or I need a cleanup crew to come get rid of these bodies. Here's a gold coin. And so like there's kind of an honor, respect, underground dealing going on with this hitman society, and they all come back to what's called the Continental, which is basically the local headquarters of the hitmen. So there's one in Rome. You go there in the second movie. There's one in Casablanca. You go there in the third movie. But the main one we know is the Continental in New York. And so apparently there is a Hulu series being made about the Hitman Society that is focused on the New York Continental, I think is what they said. And I think that could be really interesting because there is some cool world building happening. It's just John's story is starting to draw out unnecessarily.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Well, and then yesterday, not yesterday, Saturday, you guys did the first raid in Division 2. How did it go?
So to add some backstory here, when the raid came out, it took 5 hours for the first team to beat it on PC. That team was Marco Style. It was his team. He's one of the main Division YouTubers on the internet. It took them probably 3 hours to take out the final boss alone.
Wow.
Yeah. After that, reports kept coming in. Wait, no one's beaten it on console. Like the leaderboards haven't shown up yet, and it happened. Like it stayed that way for 2 days. No one could beat it. And people realized it's way harder on console because of frame rate drop and the lack of laser aiming, basically, where like you don't have the mouse to pinpoint everywhere.
Yeah.
And without going into details about the reasons why, like specifically, I'll just focus on the overall picture. We found out literally 20 minutes before we went live, the first team beat the raid on PS4. And it took them 36 hours.
Jesus.
36 hours. And that's
was
like
Xbox, was Xbox the 15-hour one?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, I assume it's not on Switch, so it's got to be
Right.
that. Yeah.
So
36 hours.
And this team, like you I saw people talking about, like I saw an article where they had talked about the run on Reddit. They had to take naps, obviously. Like there were sleep breaks that happened in the middle of this raid.
Wow.
And it's frame rate problems, so you can't react effectively in the final boss. The first boss is really tough to beat because the ads are overwhelming, and he has a heal on his chest that's really hard to hit if you don't have a mouse and keyboard. So we tried it last night, and probably about halfway through our attempt, we actually got him down to about 2/3 health, which is a pretty big deal because once you get going in a raid like that, like you've got the rhythm down. And it's only a matter of time at that point. But we and I rewatched it a little bit. We wiped when we shouldn't have because we missed a step, and everybody was like, "All right, wipe." And looking at it now, I realized I was like, "Man, why'd we do that? We could have kept going." But 3 hours is how long we tried this thing for. We couldn't beat the first boss.
Wow.
Which that is what people are reporting to be one of the most troubling things in the raid. So none of us were surprised at all. We all expected to go in, hit a brick wall almost immediately, and just be like, we're going to come back to this later. And that's what we did. It was a lot of fun, though. People have been praising the mechanics of the raid. I will say that I personally did have a good time, but it suffers from the Destiny problem. And Division 2 is being treated like Destiny right now. And by that, I mean they are treating... I won't get into gear score stuff. That's not important. But they're designing... You have to do this in this way. And with a raid, people will be like, well, that's how you have to do a raid. It's just part of it. I personally disagree. I think there's a way to make it to where a good raid can be beaten based on flexible team tactics alone, rather than you have to do this step, this step, this step. And the problem with that is all non-DPS builds are useless for that specific fight, and then arguably for the final fight too. So Daniel from FFG and I went in as healers, and we were holding us back because we weren't able to hurt the ads as much as everyone else was able to. We weren't able to add enough to the DPS check whenever we were able to make him vulnerable. It was rough. Like, and I hate that. Was your
healing at least effective? Like, were you able to keep
nerfed,
people alive?
They nerfed healing literally a week ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so they not only basically said, hey, this raid is going to make healing pointless, they also said, in case you decide to run healing anyway, you're going to realize that you're useless. They nerfed the most popular healing skill. With the most effective healing in the game is single target. And when you have 8 people in your squad... and the most effective heal, in my opinion, is the drone. The drone can only heal one person at a time, and it heals over time. So it's not like drone can go heal full, then go to the next person. It has to stay there and keep them healed. So right now there is a principal issue with the way Division 2 is doing its roles, because in my opinion, the raid is supposed to be, you take everything you've worked towards into the raid, and it's the greatest challenge. And I've said this about Destiny before. I said that the raid is supposed to be when you take all of your gear, all of the things you've learned, all of your skills, everything, and you put it to the test. And yet the Destiny raids are always like, oh, how good can you jump? Also, you're timed. And Division 2 was, of course, not that, but it was more so team coordination and how much damage can you deal. And I don't like that. But again, I will say it's a good raid for people who are looking for a raid that is akin to something like Destiny. It is good. It's just really, really tough, and they didn't play test it on console. So they released this piece of content not knowing that it was broken.
Right.
And that's just where we are.
You're the highest gear score, and like I know that's obviously not the only thing, but like you're as powerful as your build can be, right?
Essentially, like the thing about Division 2 is that you've got gear score, which is important, but then you've also got talents, attributes, all that kind of stuff to build everything else. And my build was in what I was like seeking out to do, which was basically a healer that can summon a seeker drone or a seeker mine and a healing drone, and basically heal 2 people effectively at once. I was about as optimal at that as I could be. I was probably 85% optimal, which is really high. The next closest person to being optimal to me was probably Andrew, and he was like probably 80%. And I was useless. And I wouldn't say useless. I was another body on the field, so of course I offered help. But if I was to stay doing the healing stuff I was doing, I might as well have just been a guy with a weak gun. And that's annoying. And that's why I usually just hate raids, because they always tell you this is what you have to do. So it's not really a test of your ability to make a character build. It is a test of your ability to listen to orders. And that's boring. So as of right now, I am disappointed with Division 2 simply because it's not delivering in the capacity that I feel Division 1 did.
Right.
When it comes to endgame, and a lot of people are going to scoff at that. But I don't know. I just miss things like the resistance mode in Division 1 that was an in-game activity that continuously got harder, but it benefited from the rolls. It didn't eliminate the need for them, if that makes sense.
Well, maybe they'll make some adjustments on the PS4 or on console, and hopefully that'll be better. So are you guys basically waiting until we hear of a patch or an update to the raid before you guys attempt it again, or are you guys going to try it again sometime soon?
There will be a round 2, and it is just a matter of when they fix the raid.
Right. Okay. So y'all aren't going to like Monday night, hey guys, it's round 2, let's do it.
No.
Y'all are waiting until you hear a fix.
No. Monday night is probably going to be more build optimization. I'm working on a new build that's going to be hopefully raid compatible or at least fun. And it's a pistol build, which if you play if you've played Division before, you hear that and you're like, what are you doing? But it could be fun. We'll see.
As long as you have fun, that's all that really matters. Well, hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of ChortleCast. We do hope you've enjoyed it. Our audio waves, I hope, were tickling your ears and dancing in front of your eyes and making you happy. Steven, thanks for being a part. Steven, this isn't the only thing we do here on Chortle Games on YouTube. We do a ton of things. The podcast airs every Monday at 12 o'clock Central Time. You can come hang out with us. That premieres live at 12 o'clock, and we have a chat and all that good stuff, so you can talk with us. It's a lot of fun. Steven or I usually are there. Steven's mostly the one that shows up because he's got a little bit more time around that time. But anyway, come hang out with us. Also on Monday nights, we've got the Division 2 stream that happens. It's usually Steven and our friend Jeremy from 8-Bit Gamesters. Steven, like you said a minute ago, you're going to be doing some optimization on your build, trying to come up with some new stuff, so it'll be fun to see Steven create kind of a new build for the raid.
It's a pistol build.
It's a pistol build.
Come check out my pistol build.
On Tuesdays and sometimes Thursdays, we do or I say sometimes Thursdays, sometimes it's Tuesday, sometimes it's Thursday, not like both. Okay, now that's clear. We do this thing called Team Up Tuesday or Thursday, and that's where we play a co-op game. It's usually, we try to make it me and Steven, but sometimes we've got to pull in some other folks. So this Thursday, Steven and I are going to be playing Dauntless, which is Monster Hunter Light. Would that be a good way to describe it?
That's a good way to put it.
It's kind of like a cartoony Monster Hunter. It looks really interesting. It's free to play, and it comes out Tuesday. So we're gonna try that out Thursday night. Wednesday is when we do our Let's Play. That's gonna be me playing Katana Zero, which is a cool indie Switch game. It's a pretty fun time there. And then on Friday, we always do a live stream on Friday night and Saturday night. I will probably be covering the live stream Friday night. If you have a game you'd like to see me play, let me know. I may end up doing some more Katana Zero. I may do some Days Gone. I don't know. We'll just see where it all lands. I may do another Switch game. I don't know. Whatever you want. And then Saturday, Steven will most likely be covering, but we don't know what he's going to do yet. They may be trying the raid for the second time. Who knows?
Maybe. We'll see. Still reeling from last night, so
we'll see. But anyway, yeah, that's what we do. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can like this video, share it with friends, leave us a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, you're already at chortlegames.com, so you can do that right there. You can also email us at chortlecast@gmail.com if you got a topic or a news story you'd like to hear us talk about. You can also do that in our Discord, which you can get to in the description of this video. And then you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Chortle Games. Steven, it's been fun chatting with you.
Yeah, of course.
In audio wave form.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, but
Will we be returning to our human forms, or do you want to just stay as an audio wave?
Let's be humans again. I miss the taste of food.
Okay.
Stupid.
Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, the next time you'll see us, we'll hopefully be humans again. Have a good night. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.